the Wu-Tang could be dangerous.
That boy dark dope.
What's going on, everybody? Billy here from Mad Max. Today we're collaborating with Target Tamers to bring you a review of the Crimson Trace Hardline Pro. This one is specifically in 4-16x50 and it is the MIL Reticle variant. Before we get into it, take care of some housekeeping notes. If you want to check out my channel, Mad Max Guns, on YouTube or Instagram, and make sure you're checking out targettamers.com for all your optics needs and reviews. Alright, so let's get into it. What we have here is a 30mm tube, 4-16x50, made in the Philippines optic. Crimson Trace originally started out making lasers pretty much specifically for handguns, and they were contracted out for like the little lasers and the grips that you'd see, and they did some other laser stuff, but in I believe 2016 they got bought out by Smith & Wesson's parent company, and they started coming with a lot more options. Red dots, mini red dots, tactical scopes, hunting scopes, more lasers, and so on. But I feel like they don't get the recognition they deserve just because I don't know that many people really know about them. You don't really see them advertised that often. They got two different series with a Pro and a regular series. They got the Hardline, they got the Hardline Pro. Those are more the tactical or professional or target-minded optics, scopes. And then they have the Bushline and the Bushline Pro series, which is essentially just a hunting scope, but they have the two different options. I'm assuming one's Chinese made, the other one's made in the Philippines or somewhere else. Better glass, better QA/QC, you know. But let's get into this one specifically. It's a 30mm tube, like I said, a 50mm objective tube. The reticle is an illuminated TMR style reticle. It is actually it's very easy to use. It's not all convoluted like Christmas tree reticles. I actually tend to prefer the TMR style just because it's very simple, and I pretty much dial for everything elevation wise, and then I hold for wind, so that works for me perfectly. But if you're looking for a Christmas tree reticle, you're kind of out of luck because they only do the TMR style. The adjustments are in 0.1 mils, and the MOA is going to be quarter MOA adjustments. Each rotation, each full revolution of the knobs is 10 mils, and then you have from bottom to top you have 25 mils of adjustment in both windage and elevation, and they're both exposed turrets. You got adjustable parallax from 50 to infinity, and if you've watched any of my other reviews on this channel before, you might have noticed that I'm not a big fan of the ton of adjustment on the low end, like starting at like 25 and then having 10 different adjustments before you hit 100. This one goes straight 50, 60, 75, 100, and then so on from there, which I'm really a big fan of. The knob is it's firm, but it's smooth. So you get a lot of optics that are either going to be like super easy to turn or really hard to turn. This one's like right in that sweet spot, but it's not going to bump if you just like bump it into something. You got an illuminated reticle, like I said before, and big fan of how they did this. It's pretty much what everyone's going to now, where you have 1 to 10, but in between each setting, it's the off setting, so you could set it on in between the setting that you know you're going to like. Say you like 7, you put it between 6 and 7, click it on, and click it off instead of having to crank it all the way on. If you're still doing the 1 through 10 with nothing in between and just off is 0, you gotta change that up, because this makes way more sense, makes everything way easier, and it makes it a lot easier to remember to turn it off just because it's one click. And so I'm a big fan of that. So it's 14.8 inches without the sunshade. I pretty much, if it comes with a sunshade, I'm gonna put it on there just because it's pretty much meant to be there. and I think it looks better. But 14.8 inches for this magnification is pretty standard, but it's 25.4 ounces, which is pretty light considering everything else in its class. With this magnification is used generally closer to the 28 to 30 ounce range, which is pretty good on their part. It's constructed out of aluminum. The eye relief, they say it's 3.6 to 4 inches, but I find that right about here, whatever that is your perfect eye relief. That might be a little bit more than 4 inches, I don't know. I would have a hard time actually measuring that, but as you can see here, right about there is the perfect eye relief. You have a pretty decent eye box on 4 times magnification. Pretty good edge-to-edge clarity, a lot of light transmission, and good color transmission. It is a first focal plane optic, which if you're running a tactical style scope, a sniper scope, or something that you want to use in competitions or actual like real target shooting, not hunting scope, I feel like first focal plane is an absolute must now. Second focal plane is a little dated, and just for me, when you're transitioning between different targets and distances, you're going to be changing the magnification quite often. And if you don't know the difference between first focal plane, second focal plane, tons of videos and articles written up on it, but you need first focal plane if you're going to plan on using all the magnifications in between max and minimum, and not just using minimum or max. And then Crimson Trace does something cool with this where it's essentially environment proof. It's drop tested, it's shock proof, it's recoil proof for large magnum calibers, corrosion resistant, and they did a lot of testing where, I don't, if you followed what happened with EOTech a couple years ago, where they got sued and had to revamp everything, and they're taking everybody's old optics in and giving them 50% off on a new one. It was because they couldn't withstand major heat changes. Like if you went from really hot to really cold to really cold to really hot, there'd be thermal drift, they called it, with the reticle. This is supposed to be able to handle extreme heat, extreme cold, everything in between, going from one to the other. And I take their word for it because they give you a full guaranteed warranty, so why would they do that if they didn't want to guarantee that? Its list price, its MSRP is right around $1,000, $969.99. But street price, you can find it at $850 if you really do your looking. It falls right in the class of the Vortex Viper PST Gen 2s, the Nightforce SHVs, the Leupold Mark 4s, and then the new Mark 3s. I feel that it is in class with those. But that's the spec rundown of it. Let's talk about what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it, and what I'd use it for. So pro right off the bat, the packaging's really nice. It's like they put some love into the packaging. It comes with a sunshade, instruction manuals, tools they need for adjustment, setting, the zero stop. It's just real good packaging, right? So that is, first impressions are everything. There you go, good packaging. The adjustments, firm, tactile, like everyone talks about in optic reviews. You want to hear that click, you want to feel that click. And you don't want it to be mushy. There's no mush. You're hearing it. I don't know if you can hear this, but... And it's got the zero stop, so you can crank it all the way up however far you need to go, and then when you drop them back down to reset it, just turn it. There you go. Instructions, how to set the zero stop in the instruction manual, and you can find them online, and it's pretty self-explanatory. Pull off the cap, loosen, tighten, go on, but... If you don't know how to do that yet, make sure you're checking out the instruction manual. I know a lot of us don't like to read those, but sometimes you have to. Like I said before, the parallax adjustment, I'm a big fan of the intervals of it and how nice and smooth it is. And just like that, the magnification is also firm but smooth. You're not going to be struggling, grinding your knuckles or anything. And you got a nice little ring to grab onto that is... it's not going to tear your hands up, but it gives you something to grab onto. Again, big fan of how the illumination settings are. And believe it or not, on setting 9, this is daylight bright out in a full sunny day. and you don't see that often enough, so I'm a big fan of that. Briefly went over it. Zero stop is definitely a plus. You need that if you're gonna have exposed turrets these days. If you're not doing zero stop on your optic, I don't know what you're doing. Lifetime warranty, obviously a pro. Not too many, well, more companies are getting on that train. If something breaks, you send it back. They either fix it or send you a new one. Gotta love that. Another big pro is the standard that they keep up with their optics. If you go check out their website, they talk about everything that they go through, the shock proofing, the drop testing, all that stuff, the temperature testing. It says a lot that they advertise that, and with the lifetime warranty, that they're going to stand behind that claim. And as you saw in the intro to this video, it can be used not just as like a distance scope, it can be used up close and personally. If you turn on the magnification up high so it's daylight bright, you can use that ACOG, I forget the name of the method, but you keep both eyes open and you're really using your off eye. So in my case, you'd be using my left eye to see the target, and the right eye picks up the red on the target, and it's just real easy to pick stuff up and use up close and personal, which is pretty neat, being that a lot of these optics that aren't daylight bright, you really can't pick up the reticle that easily. Even on certain low power variable optics, like on 1 power, it's really hard to pick up that unilluminated reticle when you're doing like quicker transitions. So that's actually, again, goes along with the daylight bright illumination. That, I think that has something to do with the simpler reticle rather than the big Christmas tree reticle. Let's go into the cons real quick. These are really nitpicking because this is more subjective than objective. I guess this one could be a little bit objective. You like having a adjustment, not a knob, but like, I like having the little screw and handle on the optics now for magnification adjustments. Most companies are sending you something that has a spot for you to pull out the, it's like a little set screw, and then you could pop in a knob, but the fact that it didn't come with it is kind of a bummer. But again, that's not an absolute need. It's just something that I would like to see with this optic. The other two things are totally subjective on my part. Big 34mm tube guy, I feel like that adds a little heft to the scope, and then you also get more adjustments when you're trying to make those distance shots. But again, it's not something you need. If you have the 34mm tube, I'd imagine that the scope gets a little bit heavier, so that's something, a compromise you gotta take there. But lastly, knob size. I like the bigger knobs to grab onto for adjustments, but that's just for the type of shooting that I do, which is like PRS style. And then just even really target shooting, I just like having a lot to grab up onto there. And when the bigger the knob, the adjustments are more, you can see the adjustments better. They're a lot wider, and it's just easier if you have bad eyes, which I don't really have bad eyes yet, but again, I prefer larger knobs. But that's about it for the cons. Now let's talk about the different uses that you could get out of this. Obviously, it's listed as a tactical and target scope, so if you're going to use this professionally on like a SWAT or just like an ESU sniper, you could use it for that. You could use it for like longer range gas guns if you're shooting like 308-65 Creedmoor, or even like a DMR style, or even a SPR style 5.56 or smaller caliber like that. But it's good for that type of stuff. With this one specifically, the 4-16, I would say it's good for 0 to like 750 yards. This one specifically, I made some shots out to 750 on the M1A that is mounted to. Side note, that gun definitely didn't do this optic justice, because this is just me talking. The standard M1As for precision DMR style gun are steaming piles of shit. You need to dump a ton of money into them to get them where they need to be. I'm going to do a whole nother story on that on my channel, but that gun did not do this optic justice. That was like putting a Rolex on a homeless man. But moving on, you could make shots out to 1,000 with this. The first 1,000-yard class I took, I was using a 4-16 on a 308, so it's definitely doable. But they make 3 other options for magnification ranges. You got the 1 to 6, like the standard low power variable optic that you could throw on like a small short carbine. You got the 6-24, and then you got the 3-12 option. The 3-12 option, I would say, is for the 5.56 SPR style. This bumps it up a little more to the DMR style gun, to the larger calibers, the 308s, the 6.5 Creedmoors. And then the 6-24 would be the bolt actions, whereas this could also be on a bolt action like a 308, 6.5 Creedmoor with a shorter barrel, where you're not going to be making those longer shots. I wouldn't necessarily use this for a PRS style optic, just because I often have it set on like somewhere between 16 to 18, and when you have a 24 magnification scope like the other, like the most magnification you can get out of this line of optics, you have a little bit more clarity when you're backed off the max a little bit. So when you're maxed out, could you do it? Yes. Is it optimal for that? I would say no. But again, you have the option to get the 6-24 in this scope. Could this be used on like an MR1-22 or a rimfire PRS? I would say absolutely, because you're only shooting out to like 40 yards for that, and this would be a great option for that. Although for some reason I do see a lot of people using 7-35s for NRL-22, but that's neither here nor there. Could you use this for hunting? I guess. But hunting scopes are a little bit smaller usually, and you're going to want cap turrets for that when you're trekking through the woods. But if you're looking for a hunting scope, I would just go with the Bushline Pro series, because those are made for the hunter. What would I personally use this for? I'm going to put this on a shorter barrel 308 bolt action that I'm going to be building soon. And it's going to be like a training rifle, one that I lend out to people. Stuff that I'm not shooting out past 700 very often. Essentially what you're getting is a very high quality scope, 30mm tactical style scope with this 4-16 magnification, great reticle, great adjustments, light, and just overall good underrated scope. If you haven't already, make sure you're checking out Crimson Trace. In closing, would I suggest this optic? If that's what you're looking for, a mid-range optic to slap on a gas gun or a bolt gun, absolutely. If you're looking for a PRS gun, or if you're looking for a regular carbine optic, I would either push up to the 6-24 or I'd go down to the 1-6. But this line of optics is 100% good to go in my eyes. Thanks for watching, guys. If you've got any questions, drop them in the comments below. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you read the article that goes along with this, where if you have any questions you might have glossed over something, check it out on targettamers.com. That's going to be in the information below. Check out my Instagram, YouTube channel at MadMaxGuns. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.